Today is May 1st, 1992. The subject of this video message is the UNCED Earth Summit, the meeting which is to begin on June 1st, 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. The acronym UNCED stands for the United Nations Committee for Environment and Development. It is pronounced UNCED, and perhaps indicating the secret agenda of this meeting. This is the logo of the Earth Summit. This is not a dove in their Earth Summit logo. It is a hand, and the hand is holding the world with the slogan, "In our hands," alongside of it. In whose hands? Who is the we in this motto? The hands of the world order. These elitists convened this UNCED meeting in the first place, and for a bad purpose. This video will show strong evidence that the persons running the UNCED Earth Summit are actually setting a net to place the power over the earth and its peoples into their hands. Brave, bold deeds by the citizenry are needed quickly. Once a government signs their treaties, their citizens are, de jure, in the hands of the world order. There's that motto again, in our hands. Whose hands? The same world order families that planned World War I and World War II, that tricked the third world countries to borrow funds and rack up enormous debts. The same world order that stole much of the money borrowed by Africans and other nations and hid it in Geneva banks. They are the persons who financed Hitler, manufactured the Holocaust, and managed to blame the terrible deeds on the German people. They can be credited with manipulating famines in Ethiopia and elsewhere and purposely creating war and debt to bring societies into their control. The world order crowd are not a nice group of people. My name is George Hunt. I'm speaking to you from a video studio in Boulder, Colorado. I have attended some of the meetings and caucuses leading to the UNCED Earth Summit. I am a business consultant and a college teacher in small business management. I own an environment company too, and am very familiar with the environment hypocrisy that the world order crowd has taken over the environment movement. I am aware of their plans. The world environment movement will soon be in the hands of the world order if you and others do not respond with action after you view this videotape. Action may constitute showing this to 5 others. It may constitute showing it to a judge down the street or a city councilman who you know in your town. Somebody is going to set the spark off. I really feel that it is not too late. When I served as an official host at a key environment meeting in Denver, Colorado in 1987, I was surprised to see David Rockefeller, Edmund de Rothschild, Secretary of State Baker, then Secretary of the Treasury, Maurice Strong, Waste Company Chairman and EPA Administrator William Ruckelshaus, UN Secretary General in Geneva McNeil, and various World Bank and IMF officials there. What were the rich elite and bankers doing at an Environment Congress? Listen carefully. I will now attempt to show you how their enactments will work against you. Trust and foundation income is the cornerstone of the world order. They command politicians to do their bidding, and presidents, judges, and legislators lick their boots. Their swollen egos and bellies are never satisfied, and their lust for more is insatiable. Now world power and authority is in their grasp. Are we going to give it to them without a confrontation? Or, like they did to the Germans, will they blame the environment holocaust on you and get away with it? What is the World Summit meeting and who is behind it? The UNCED World Summit, that's UNCED World Summit, is a key event in a series of environment meetings which have occurred since 1972. Maurice Strong, a UN official and an employee of the Rockefeller and Rothschild Trusts and Projects, convened the first Congress in Stockholm, Sweden in 1972. 20 years later, Maurice Strong is the Secretary General and convener of UNCED. In the 1970s and 1980s, numerous conferences created political action decrees, eventually to lead to the UNCED Earth Summit. I attended 2 meetings in Colorado in 1987 and 1991. Friends attended others in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Des Moines. Here is a paper from the Des Moines meeting where Maurice Strong was in charge. Representative Gephardt's telephone number appears on the meeting documents. Here are some phrases from the document of the Secretariat for World Order, which were distributed at the Des Moines UNCED meeting. We are the living sponsors of the great Cecil Rhodes' will of 1877, in which Rhodes devoted his fortune to the extension of British rule throughout the world and colonization by British subjects of the entire continent of Africa, the Holy Land, the valley of the Euphrates, the islands of Cyprus and Candia, the whole of South America, the islands of the Pacific not heretofore possessed by Great Britain, the whole of the Malay archipelago, the seaboard of China and Japan, the ultimate recovery of the United States of America as an integral part of the British Empire. We stand with Lord Milner's credo. We too are British race patriots, and our patriotism is the speech, the traditions, the principles, the aspirations of the British race. Do you fear to take this stand at the very last moment when this purpose can be realized? Do you not see that failure now is to be pulled down by the billions of Lilliputians of lesser race who care little or nothing for the Anglo-Saxon system? At the Fourth World Congress meeting in 1987, some other bad remarks about common people were made. I'm going to play them for you now. For instance, here is David Lang, a Montreal international investment banker, one of their pack, decreeing that these environment and economic activities of the world order not be shared with the public. He calls us cannon fodder. Listen to this.
I suggest, therefore, that this be sold not through a democratic process. That would take too long and devour far too much of the funds to educate the cannon fodder, unfortunately, which populates the earth. We have to take almost an elitist program that we can see beyond our swollen bellies and look to the future in time frames and in results which are not easily understood or which can be, with intellectual honesty, be reduced down to some kind of simplistic definition.
Does it make you feel uncomfortable that the arrogant rich are close to complete rule over the United States, Canada, and other countries? Here's more. The decrees leading to the Earth Summit were dictated without debate or opportunity for dissent. The treaties the world order once signed at UNCED will supersede national laws. Yet I saw the major decrees at the Fourth World Congress dictated into existence by Edmund de Rothschild. You can hear it too. Listen to him dictate. Rothschild got these major decrees into the United Nations resolutions without debate or challenge.
But perhaps this conference might like to think more about the Marshall Plan, which had been mooted and put forward very tentatively at the Denver conference. And perhaps this might be the keynote of what you have heard today and what perhaps you might like, in some perhaps amended form, to have put forward. At this conference, recognizing the needs to protect our ecological and environmental heritage within the concept of the World Wilderness Congress, World Wildlife Fund, and all other bodies involved in the preservation of life on our planet, asked the Prime Minister of Norway, Right Honourable the Gro Harlem Brundtland, as one of the world's leaders of a greatly respected community, to be the promoter of this International Conservation Bank. By her Brundtland report, which has been widely circulated to world leaders, she could follow up this report with the recommendations to promote a second Marshall Plan, the third world debt relief, and finance for a stable development.
Nobody at that caucus mentioned a Second World Marshall Plan or a new currency system to finance a stable development. The World Conservation Bank had not been thoroughly discussed at all. I was denied the opportunity to openly challenge Rothschild's remarks at the caucus by the World Conservation Bank president and meeting chairman, I. Michael Sweetman. In world politics, the names of First World, Second World, Third World, and Fourth World are used to describe blocks of political entities. The First World is the capitalist countries of Europe and North America. They are industrial and are, therefore, the world's biggest polluters. The Second World is the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc countries. Do you remember Rothschild referring to a Second World Marshall Plan? He was speaking of the Soviet Bloc countries, not a second Marshall Plan. He was speaking of the Soviet Bloc countries and that they will be rescued by First World money. Europe was granted huge sums of money by the Marshall Plan in 1949, and the Second World will receive billions of North American money in this repeat performance. And guess what banking family will act as the main money changers for the Russian ruble, possibly absconding with billions? The Rothschild Group, of course. Rothschild made these remarks back in 1987, 2 years before the Berlin Wall was torn down. He was bragging to us that he knew the Soviet regime would collapse. Here are some April 1992 news articles about the progress of Rothschild's Second World Marshall Plan. They come from the New York Times, and the world order is right on time. Here is a April 15th, 1992 New York Times headline. $44 billion needed to aid ex-Soviets in 1992, IMF says. It's needed for a shift to the free market. Most of the help would finance imports of food and spare parts for 15 republics. My response to that is, sure. Another article in the international edition of the New York Times, Wednesday, April 29th, 1992, had this to say about Rothschild's Marshall Plan. Although there has been much talk about building a new political order in the post-Cold War world, the events here in the last few days make clear that a new economic order is also rapidly emerging. Washington cannot bankroll a Marshall Plan for the former Soviet republics because the task is so enormous and because the American economy is debt-ridden and no longer so dominant. That is why Washington has asked the IMF to run the rescue operations, which are expected to cost $44 billion this year. Well, Rothschild really called it, didn't he? Soon after these remarks were made, the Rothschilds reopened the Rothschild Bank in Frankfurt, Germany, after 50 years of closure. They are now conveniently available to stabilize the Russian ruble with money from the West. Question: do we really want to send North American money abroad so the Rothschilds can make multi-billion-dollar windfalls on the currency trades? Let's talk about the Third World now. The Third World are those countries who have emerged since World War II. Young and easily fooled, the World Bank under Robert S. McNamara played bad tricks on them, spiriting billions of loan dollars back to Swiss bank accounts through fictitious African addresses. They now owe $1.5 trillion to the world banking system with nothing to show for it except poverty and cruel loan collections. Maurice Strong has suggested an ominous scenario at the UNCED meeting, which could break out if his words are to be believed. He says in this article in West Magazine that a fight may erupt between the First World polluters and the Third World poor. Here is how he describes it. Each year, he explains as background to the telling of his novel's plot, the World Economic Forum convenes in Davos, Switzerland. Over